had to Google what the World Economic Forum did. I had to, who's the other guy? Schwab, is that somebody? Yeah, I had to Google him and his book. Completely. But seriously, I don't know how to prove an absence of it, but like literally, I've never heard of them.
This is Callum Smiles for Rebel News, and today I am in the small town of Thetford in Norfolk to cover a rather exciting little story. Now, you may be aware of the 15-minute city agenda that's being rolled out across the country and the entire world. For example, in the likes of Bristol, Bath, Canterbury, Oxford, the list goes on. However, in the small town of Thetford, there's a stiff resistance moving, opposing the 20-minute neighbourhoods being proposed by Norfolk County Council. You may recognise this video of Mike Bull, who told the mayor he does not consent and he will not play ball.
You made a decision on our behalf to vote in favour of a 20-minute neighbourhood plan for the County of Norfolk. What gave you the right to vote for me about an issue which is going to dramatically affect everybody? With that in mind, let me tell you now, I don't consent. I don't need your help. Take away.
And today I am fortunate enough to meet the man himself. Mike, good to see you.
Good to meet you, Callum. How you doing?
So Mike, talk to me about that meeting that evening.
Okay, the meeting came about after a report in the Eastern Daily Press, which is our local county newspaper, and that meeting was basically to discuss with the Mayor Jane James on the night as our local council representative. She holds a position as a county councillor, Breckland and Town, and get her to answer questions as to what the 20-minute neighbourhood was about. And how it's going to affect us, because Thetford had been identified in that EDP press release as being chosen to be a trial town. So we wanted to understand a little bit more about it. We were aware, many of us were aware already of what had gone on in Oxford and Canterbury, and what we didn't want was that to happen to Thetford. And it was quite possible that it was going to happen to Thetford because it all seemed to be part of the same plan. So we were there to ask her really how she and other councillors had chosen and came about voting a policy in, even if it's for investigation and research purposes, how they can vote on the public behalf without a public consultation. To the best of my knowledge, and now it's confirmed, that there was no public consultation. So I would have thought on such a significant issue such as that they would have a public consultation to get a lay of the land from the public's perception, but they didn't do that. So we went up there, we asked her the questions. She wasn't able to answer them, but I wasn't surprised by that. But what she was able to do was mediate with us to a certain extent. In actual fact, at one point during the meeting, you'll see on the video that, she says that if restrictions are going to come in, and it is about people's movements being restricted, we're a nation of choice. She would support our side of it, and not the council side of it. So that was something at least that came out of it, so we was able to ascertain that. And then it was decided that we would go for an emergency meeting, which is actually tonight, Thursday the 30th, at the Carnegie Rooms in Thetford, where we got county councillors coming down, and they will answer questions and they will talk to us about the policy, and we'll get a better understanding of the policy from their point of view.
So talk to me a little bit about the 20-minute neighbourhood proposal, because you mentioned there about restricting movements. Many people who don't seem as aware as you are, they think it's a great idea, because all they see is, we're going to get all our things, everything that we need, down the road from us. But you're more sceptical of that. What can you tell me that they don't know?
Well, I've got to be honest, it's the same policy and the same plans were offered to Oxford and Canterbury, but infrastructure is okay, but you've got to understand it comes at a cost and it comes at a time. You aren't going to just have pop-up shops, you aren't going to have pop-up dentists, pop-up doctors, etc, etc. Like I identified on the original video on the 28th of February, we have one school in the town. You know, and if it is a 20-minute neighbourhood and it turns out that it's 10 minutes either way on the journey, that's not long enough to get across the town to go to school. So many of the residents are asking, can I go to work? Can I drive my car? Can I do this? They're questions that I can't answer at the moment, but hopefully after tonight we'll be able to ascertain that. But what we do know from test cases in other areas, Oxford, Canterbury, etc., that movement is being restricted. Low traffic neighbourhoods, they call them over there, they're 15 minutes, but obviously 20 minutes in the town. But that in itself is okay, perhaps, if you aren't dependent on a car. But there aren't many people in the world that aren't dependent on a car. It's a necessity. It's not a luxury, it's a necessity in order to get to work, to go to shops, to do whatever they need to do. So what we're finding down there is obviously they've put the bollards down, they put bollards in there, they've closed streets off with planters, they've got ANPR cameras. If you go through a town or go through a street that you're not allowed to go down, you're subject to a fine. We are in a position in Thetford where we, prevention rather than cure. They're up in arms, and obviously there's a significant amount of damage is being caused in Oxford where people are opposing the system and resisting it. But that's because it's been put in. We've got the opportunity here at Thetford to have it effectively looked at in detail, forensically looked at, and before it is implemented, and that's the plan.
We've seen over recent years like a bigger and bigger disconnect when it comes to local politics. You don't usually see many people at local town meetings, but the one on that night, the room was full. What is the sort of feeling in Thetford when it comes to this 20-minute proposal?
Well, uncertainty. Yeah, I mean that's the reason the room was full. It's because there's uncertainty. You can't. I don't believe it's fair to give people a very small amount of information and let them work the rest out for themselves, because I think everybody's going to come up with a different resolution or a different ending to the story. So I think it was quite a dangerous move, quite a discourteous move, really, to be honest with you, because what they've done is they've just said, 20-minute neighbourhood. Well, people are naturally going to start researching that, etc., online, and it won't be long before it'll take you straight to, certainly on YouTube, it wouldn't take you long before it takes you to Oxford. And it aroused people's suspicions. I have to be honest, I mean, you look at the town, in the nicest possible way, our town has been disrupted over a lot of years. I've lived here 46 years, and the town used to be a bustling town. And you can see today it's not. But, shops have been closed, infrastructure has been moved out of the town centre, etc., etc. So there's a necessity to travel. They've created a necessity to travel. You used to be able to come into the town and buy whatever you wanted, but you can't do that now. But I think realistically, to answer your question, I think it's just the uncertainty. That's what aroused people to come down there that night and be vocal, and I think they're right to do it. 100% right.
Finally, talk to me about tonight's meeting. What's the objective of the meeting that's happening tonight? Because you've managed to take this up to the next level. You've got county councillors to come down. You've been allocated more time for more questions. What is the objective for this evening?
I think what we need to do is we need to get a full explanation, and Lana Hempsall is coming down. She is the policy, effectively she's a policy creator, but we know that not to be true because over 100 councils across the country are adopting the same policy. But she needs to come down and explain her policy in detail so that we've got a better understanding of it, talk to us about the infrastructure, and I think it's really to gain a full understanding of it. And like I said earlier, these things are nice if they're going to come and there's no price to pay, but it's too good to be true. There's going to be a cost. And I believe, personally, with climate crisis being sold as the agenda, and cars being, the main cause of a climate crisis is what we're being told, I think, the motorist is going to be hit. If you tell me another lucrative industry that you can make money back to pay for the infrastructure that they give us, I don't think there is a more lucrative industry than motorism. And, the motorists are being hit all the time. And, I think what they'll do, if I'm honest, I think they'll come down here with a policy and they'll say, well, no, we're not restricting you. You've got a choice, blah, blah, blah. It's with no intention to restrict you. But I think the choice will be, if you use a car, because everything's pushed towards cycle or foot. If you use a car, you know, yeah, you've chosen to use that car, so you have made a choice. So they haven't taken the option of a choice away. But if you use that car, you're potentially going to get a fine. So it's not much of a choice, really. It's a bit of a play on words, isn't it? We're not restricting you, but you can't really move. Simple as that.
Well, thank you very much, and I hope you get all the answers you're looking for tonight. Is there anyone else in Thetford we could talk to about this?
Yeah, Chris. Chris Brooks is the guy who filmed the cameraman, and I've just seen him actually just walking down the town. So I've made sure that he stopped. And but Chris, yeah, certainly Chris Brooks. He filmed the original video for us. So yeah, it'd be good to have a chat with him, get his perspective on it.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome, Callum. Thank you.
Chris, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
So you were filming that evening at the town hall. What can you tell me about what you saw?
I saw the uprise of the Thetford people. It was nice to see because normally people aren't that bothered about politics. It was an amazing night. I really didn't expect the video to go viral like it did, which again obviously tells me that this is in the hearts of people. It's such an amazing thing to happen in a small town as well. And we seem to be setting the benchmark for all the other towns and cities. The amount of emails that I've had saying, "Oh, thank you so much. How did you get this far?" You know, all over the world we've had such good responses. It's been overwhelmingly humbling. It's really good.
Would you say the people that have got in touch with you are those that are aware of the 15-minute city agendas and 20-minute neighbourhoods, or are there a lot of, you could say, first-time viewers that have got in touch?
I would say a lot of them are first-time viewers. Yeah, a lot of people. I think this is kind of waking people up more than. I mean, don't get me wrong, but I have been getting emails from people who are awake, as we would say. But the majority of people, I would say, are just now starting their journey of waking up.
And what would you say your concerns are when it comes to both the 15-minute city and the 20-minute neighbourhood?
I just think at the moment it's that uncertainty of knowing what is really planned. It sounds good on paper, but we used to have that about 10, 15 years ago until the councils moved all the shopping out of the town centre. It's just the not knowing. And obviously I've got 2 young children. I want them to enjoy the kind of freedoms that we had as children. And not just this, but in general, that seems to be on the decline.
Mike and Chris's concerns about population control and restrictions to private vehicle usage don't seem as far-fetched as some may say, when towns and cities around the country are bringing in similar policies. For example, in Oxford, they're bringing in traffic filtering systems. In Canterbury, it's the circulation plan. In Cambridge, it's the Cambridge congestion charge. In Bath and Bristol, it's being called livable neighbourhoods. In Birmingham, it's the new clean air charge. And of course, in London, it's the ever-expanding ultra-low emission zone. I wanted to speak to the ordinary people of Thetford to find out what they thought about the 20-minute neighbourhood, so I went to the High Street to speak to some of the Thetford locals. What are your thoughts on the 20-minute neighbourhood?
I don't think it's appropriate for a town of Thetford size. It may work in a big city, but it wouldn't work in a small town like this. We've only got a few shops. That's it, isn't it?
What are your thoughts on the 20-minute neighbourhood?
It's a big con. An absolute con. That's all it is. All it's for is to get people herded into one place so they can control them. And they're using climate change as an excuse.
What are your thoughts on the whole idea of a 20-minute neighbourhood or a 15-minute city?
I suppose it's good in the long run, but not good for most people, I shouldn't think.
So here it's a 20-minute neighbourhood. In the cities it comes under the 15-minute city concept, but it comes under different names. So in Oxford it's traffic filtering systems, Bath and Bristol, livable neighbourhoods, Canterbury it's the Canterbury circulation plan. So in, for example, Oxford, where they'll be trialling it in 2024, every house gets 100 trips in a car between zones per house. So not per person in the house. So if there's 3 people, it's got to be split between 3 ways.
This is wrong. I can't understand why they're doing that. I don't understand it at all. It's obviously money making, but I don't like that idea at all. It's just It feels like we're becoming a communism country to me. There's just too many rules and regulations. The freedom's stopped, isn't it?
So what are your thoughts on the 20-minute neighbourhood proposal?
I think it's going to be detrimental to the town. Already we see lots of places that are closing down, and I think if that happens as well, you'll see other things, and it'll just push people out to the out-of-town areas.
And do you think this has all been done a little bit backhanded in the lack of democracy when it comes to making these decisions?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, people make these decisions and people find out afterwards, and that's how it happens, where it should be a more inclusive process.
Thank you very much. So we're just waiting to go inside the Carnegie Hall here in Thetford for the town council meeting regarding the 20-minute neighbourhoods. And I've got a chance now to quickly speak to Mike before we go in. Mike, what are you hoping from tonight's meeting? And, well, how confident are you?
I'm relatively confident because I've got the support of the community. What I'm expecting from the meeting really is so that we can understand and get more clarity in relation to the actual policy itself. At the moment, we haven't had the policy explained to us. So once we've had the policy explained to us, then we'll see maybe the devil in the detail, if there is indeed any there. The inference early on with the councils that have turned up tonight is there is no devil in the detail. So we just we hope that people are their word and we can go back to our normal lives. That's what we want, ultimately.
Just before the meeting started, I saw Conservative Norfolk County Councillor Lana Hempsall and thought I'd try and get a quick interview before the meeting started. Can I get a quick word for Rebel News? Is that all right?
Sorry, for?
Rebel News?
No, I'm not talking to you guys.
Oh, why not?
Because I've seen your website and you guys aren't very nice.
We're lovely.
No, you're not. No.
Why aren't we nice?
Huh?
Why aren't we
really
nice?
horrible.
To
Oh,
who?
God. But just stuff that you're promoting. Just
Promoting
stuff
what?
I can subscribe to. Anyway. About what?
About tonight's meeting? And
Well, it's organised by the town council and that's it. So, yes, I've been here. I offered to help Jane and the town council because they found themselves in a place where they don't deserve to be, being accused of restricting people's movements and restricting their civil liberties, and I think that's completely undeserved. So.
But do you not think with the comparisons that are being made to what's happening in Oxford that those concerns are justified?
No, they're not. They're not, because there's a clear distinction between what we're proposing and what they're doing for congestion. So, no.
What is the clear distinction here between Oxford and Thetford?
I think I've made it really clear, and the FAQ sheet on the website makes it really clear that this is about building resilience into communities and making sure that local services are within an easy walking, wheeling, cycling distance from where people live.
So would there definitely be no restrictions on private vehicle usage? So for example, in Oxford, they'll be using ANPR cameras to charge people if they make any more than 100 trips between zones in a vehicle.
Look, I don't live in Oxford. I don't know what they've done, and I'm not going to look into it because, quite frankly, what I'm doing here, or I'm attempting to do here, has got nothing to do with what they're doing there. So no, the answer is no. This is about choice. This is about choice because ultimately the sprawl and the development sprawl that we're having at the moment is pushing people into their cars because the distances towards urban centres are just too big.
So just to confirm, there would be no financial punishments for those who choose to use their own vehicles wherever they want to go in the town of Thetford?
No, not under my 20-minute neighbourhood scheme, no.
Thank you very much. So go on, what have Rebel News said that's bad?
Oh my God! like your website scares me. So
What scares you about our website?
It just actually properly scares me.
Apparently, we have a scary website, but she can't tell me what is scary on our website.
From Thetford East. Jane is also the mayor of Thetford.
The meeting was completely full, and here are the highlights of the evening.
Very much. Now, my question to you is, if this was your idea, are you proud that your idea has actually gone worldwide?
I don't actually think that my proposal went viral. I think what I've been hearing on the internet is something completely different went viral, and that's what's being promoted. So I don't think that the model that I suggested at Norfolk County Council is the one that you're referring to.
There seems to be a massive coincidence that this has been rolled out in Oxford and Canterbury, and I think there's one in Scotland, there's Newcastle in Australia, there's Paris, all from one idea. Surely this is a top-down order.
Okay, Lana, have you been ordered from the top down to raise this issue?
Okay, Bob, I really appreciate your concern, but the answer is just no. I honestly didn't pick this up from the internet. I haven't got anybody from the World Economic Forum in my contact list on my phone. I've never even heard of them. Like, seriously, but I've never even, actually, but seriously, God, you won't believe me, but right, so when this all went, so when the EDP article came out in January, and I read what was in there, I had to Google the vast majority of the accusations, and what was it? But you know, I had to Google them. But I'm really sorry, you know, pardon my ignorance, Bob, but I had to Google what the World Economic Forum did. I had to, who's the other guy? Schwab, is that somebody? Yeah, I had to Google him and his book. Completely. Completely. But seriously, I don't know how to prove an absence of it, but like literally, I've never heard of them. Like, I've literally never heard of them, and I had to Google it, and like my Google history is now destroyed completely because I've gone to look at. Bob, I promise you.
So, have you heard of Agenda 2030?
I have now. I have now because I had to find out. But it's not part of that. Like seriously. I have now.
Okay, I think.
So Bob, I really hate to disappoint you and you, Steve, but I've never heard of it before.
Now, let me be absolutely clear on my own position. If any introduction of a 20-minute neighbourhood meant cars would be banned, as has been suggested, or fines or financial penalties introduced for using your car, as has also been suggested, then I believe this would be a non-starter. It would be illogical, it would be unenforceable and just plain wrong. If any future 20-minute neighbourhood proposals for Thetford sought to restrict movement, impose fines or otherwise curtail personal freedoms, then I would be totally against, and I would vote strongly against. And Jane James has said the same at the initial meeting.
One reason you justify the need to move away from private vehicles is because it has created local air quality problems. But where is the evidence for this? That statement alone is very vague, and there's no proof of this on the Norfolk County Council website that I can find. A lot of you have made it clear that you're against travel restrictions, and I'd hope that you all stick to your word. The only problem is you're not in permanent positions, and there's nothing to say that anyone who replaces you won't feel differently. And although we have a say in who represents us in the council through votes and elections, we never elected any of you to do this, and yet here we are.
So regardless of what's been said so far, can I just have a quick show of hands? Because this matters to me right now. Who is here against restrictions on civil liberties and movement? That'd be me.
The whole lot. Very good.
Yeah, thank you. And that's why it's important that this motion is on the cards at Norfolk County Council and that it underpins what we need as a county to enable us, within reason, to walk, cycle or wheel, get around in a wheelchair in a place that depends on cars for its economy to thrive.
Are Norfolk County Council prepared on this occasion, if we accept that we're going to be a trial town, to confirm without a doubt that no restrictions on vehicles, no restrictions on movements, no penalties, no fines, no ANPR cameras, we can carry on our lives exactly as it was and effectively, from Lana's point of view, disabled people's lives get better?
There is no plan for Thetford. There is no plan to restrict ANPRs and whatever in Thetford at all.
Never say never, because again, they can do what they want to do in London. I don't see a low emission zone in Thetford in my lifetime. So I can categorically state there is no plan to restrict movements, those liberties, people getting in and out with their private car to school, to hospital, zero plan. Absolutely categorically.
Tom, you'd be prepared to send a letter to each resident of Thetford just so that we can get that confirmed?
I can send a letter to the town council, to something like that. I might find myself on YouTube. I've said it. I'm quite happy to put something in writing to the town council, to the mayor, copy you in, so it can be shared. There isn't a plan.
Historically, we've had an abundance of left versus right, red versus blue, with a smattering of alternative. A system where it has become the norm to have a top-down approach to decision-making. So, what we are going to do is put forward a number of independent candidates that, if elected to town, district or both, will push hard for a bottom-up approach to decision-making in Thetford.
Mayor James, how do you think tonight went?
I think it was positive in the respect that people came out, and as I said in my summing up, that they shared their concerns, their hopes, their aspirations, and that's what we're here to do as an elected individual, to hear all of them from all residents. So yeah, in that respect, it was good to hear and understand what people think.
And many people have spoken tonight about, the influence of the World Economic Forum. And I don't know if you've ever seen, but there is a bit where Klaus Schwab says, we've infiltrated every government around the world. Do you think that there is a possibility that has trickled down into unelected international bureaucrats influencing more local politics?
They don't influence me, and I hope not, because that's not what democracy is about.
So it's been an interesting day here in Thetford and an even more interesting evening here at the Carnegie Hall at the Town Hall meeting in front of 2 of the 83 county councillors here in Norfolk. They have stated on record they will not impose or back any restrictions to freedom of movement. However, this does remain to be seen. This has been Callum Smiles, Rebel News, covering the 20-minute neighbourhoods here in Thetford, Norfolk. If you value all the work and information we bring to you about the 15-minute cities and the 20-minute neighbourhoods, then you can find all of our UK reports and more at ukreporters.co.uk, where you can also help cover our minimal expenses so we can continue to bring you the news that matters to you. So that's ukreporters.co.uk. Thank you.